and welcome back. In this tutorial, we're going to fix a couple of things that you might have come across when you were working through your game. First off, we can stick to the edges. So there is an easy fix for that. And so for example, when you were playing, so when you jump on your edges, I'm trying to find one that I haven't changed. I have fixed some of them. So for example, there. Right, when you hit the edge, you get stuck on it, and you can essentially stick to it. Where if you notice there, I kind of jumped over top of that edge, and you slide off. So if I can go up to the, and I don't have a jump force high enough. Okay, let's just change my jump force. Let's change it to 20, no, not that high, so 25. Go back to our game. Apparently I'm not very good at even the game I created. So there we go. So if I even go to this one, oh, I fell off. Anyway, so there are some of those ledges where you will get stuck to as well. So I know there. So if I just walked off, so you can get stuck to the edge there. So the same thing, how do you fix this? So there is an easy fix. All I did was I went into my grid and I created the edges. And so in the grid, again, you could right click, you go down, you create 2D object, and you create a tile map, which will just create a blank tile map. And then you can rename it edges and move from there. So in the edges, I added the colliders, the same as we did for our ground, right? So I added my colliders. And this time what I did, I added also a physics material to it. So just for example, and so I'm going to just go through and kind of explain what I did. So on these edges, you can see that they highlight differently. So I'm going to go back to the tile palette. I'm going to erase these right now. So again, make sure you're in the foreground because that's where these ones are. And that's a foreground one. And these two up here need to be fixed as well. And what I did was, so then I went to my edges and I just repainted them as an edge. So for example, let's just put that one there. Paint this one on this side, up here. And then we have an edge here, and I think that's it. Oh, sorry, there's the bottom parts of these two. And I'm just going to go back into our foreground and finish off that one there. Bottom. That didn't work very well. Now I got to erase this one here. So if you paint over top of it, that's fine. You can just erase. So it's going to erase the foreground one, but because we have an edge behind there anyways, that's going to show up. And I do have to go back to the edges because I didn't put the bottom of this one in. So there. So that's the edges. And so again, in the edges, you create your tile map. So you add component, add a tile map collider, add a composite collider, and then you're going to say used by composite on the tile map collider, which means that this is used by composite. And then from there, what you want to do is because the rigid body gets created automatically, again, keep in mind, remember with the rigid body, this is actually set to dynamic. So if we were to play, and again, I've already had this set up, but if, for example, you push play and something happens, such as, why does that happen? Well, again, that's because your rigid body is set to dynamic. So we want to make sure it's static so you can't move these ground layers around and so on. So that's that. The other thing that you will need to make sure you do is on the edges, you want to make sure you tag your edges as a ground layer, right? Or otherwise as you run, so if you're running on this platform and you're standing on here, your contact is not on a ground and you're not going to be able to jump. So do make sure you layer, so in terms of the layer, you change that so that it is a ground layer as well. So now you can jump off of the edges of the platforms. Now, the second thing that we added was, so if you, and I have these added, but that's fine. So in the assets, I created a folder, so you can right click, create a folder. So create folder, call it materials. I'm going to go into the materials, and I've got a couple of materials here created. So I'll just create another one. So if you right click, create, and then go all the way down to physics material 2D and create that. So you get this physics material, which is set to 0.4 friction, which is why we can stick to the ledges, right? So we want to change this so that it has 0 friction, and then you're done, right? So that's what this one is, and then I right-clicked, renamed it to slippery. So and then you would move that over. So on the edges, you want to move your slippery object over onto your rigid body, or you can move it over onto the collider. Either way, it should work. And then it allows you to slip off the side so you don't just get stuck there. Now, the second thing that I did, and again, because I accidentally deleted the video, I have these done already, but that's fine. I'll kind of go over the steps to doing it. You'll notice that when I jump, right, so when you were jumping, you were still in this running animation, whereas now I have a different animation working where I kind of go into that jump mode and then falling back down to the ground. So the way to set that up, the same as you did for your animation. So we're going to go to our player, and then we want to go to our animations, and where you have, so right now you should have idle and running set up. So you would want to create a new clip. So you just create new clip. And then again, same as you did before, you want to make sure these are saved into your animations and into your player. And then you're going to create a clip called jump or jumping, or again, you can kind of name it whatever, and then falling. Well, right now you're just creating jump. So on your jump animation, you're going to have, so this will be blank. Now you go to your, so it creates that jump animation, and now you go to your character sprites, and in the jump animations, there is no jump animation. It is just set as one sort of, this is it, right? It just goes into that static sort of jump mode. And again, same as your other characters, if you haven't yet done so, you need to make sure that you set this as, in this case, it's only one image, so you don't need to do multiple. And then 16 pixels per unit, point no filter, and then you apply it. And that changes that's right. And then the same as we did for our other animations, you just select this and you drag it over into your animation. So I've already got it here, and that's the animation. Right, so if I push play to see what this looks like, it just goes into that static kind of, that's it. Right, there's no sort of animation as he's leaping. It just goes into this static mode where he's jumping. And then you do the same thing. So you're going to click here, you're going to create a new clip, create a falling animation, and same thing for your fall. You're going to do the same thing with this sprite. Make sure you set it to 16 pixels, point no filter, and then you do the same thing. You're going to drag, this is just one static image, so you drag it into the animation, which again, if we play it, it goes into this animation where it looks like the frog is reaching down towards the ground. And that's it for that, right? So that just sets up those two other animations. Now the tricky part is in our animator. And again, I have this set up. So in the animator, so all of this is new. So what you would see is you're going to see these. So first off you have is running, right? That's one of the bools you have. You want to create, so you're going to click the plus, create a bool, and you're going to call this is jumping. And then you're going to also click another one. You're going to call it is falling. Right? Those are the two bools that I've created. And that's it. So I can stop the playing there. I can right click, delete that one because I don't want it. And then from there, it's just a matter of organizing and setting up all these transitions. So what you want to do is from idle, and again, you're going to make transition, and then you drag it over to jump, right? And that's going to create a transition from idle to jump. And there you want to, so this is going to be blank. You're going to want to click the plus here, and then is jumping is true, right? So idle, okay, we're idle, we're jump, okay, is jumping is true. And then same as before, you want this to have, so there is no exit time, or else what that means is it's going to finish up an idle animation and jump. So this just automatically moves into the jump and so on. So same thing from jump to falling. So you want to right click on jump, make a transition, drag it down to falling, right? So it's going to create a transition from jump to falling. And same as the other one, you're going to add this condition where you're going to say is falling is true. So this means, so what happens is we're going to essentially press the spacebar, we jump, which we've already set up in our other script. So we press the spacebar, we jump. So that moves us into that kind of leaping into the air animation. But then you want to move down towards the ground where you want it. So now you're in a falling animation. If you are running, you want to be able to jump from run. So you're going to right click, make transition, go to jump, right? And same thing, you're going to say, in this case, is jumping is true. And there's no exit time. And then from jump to running, you're going to say is jumping is false, right? Because now we want to change this so that it's false. So we're going to go back to the running animation, or back to the running animation. And then same thing for, so what this is doing is it allows you to idle. So if you're idle, you can push space and jump. If you're running, you can push space and jump. If you're falling, you're not going to be able to jump from the falling animation, right? So the only thing that can happen is you're going to fall, and then you can enter back into the running animation. And the reason I had to add this in when I was playing with it, with the script and so on, if you jump and you land on the platform without physically going into a falling state, you kind of get stuck there, right? Because you go running, and then you're in this jump animation, and then you land on that platform. Well, now you can't go anywhere from there because you're not entering this state. So I just found it easier just to kind of return from that aspect. So that's it for that. So that kind of sets up these kind of what's happening there. And then in the player script, you want to, so I'm going to edit my script. And I've redone some of these videos. I had to go back because I lost some of them. So that's why I do have stuff in here that you won't have seen. So in my assets, for example, I have a bunch of other folders that I have and assets there. So I'm going to zoom in a bit so it's easier to see, which is one of the reasons why I'm fine kind of redoing these as well. So this was all set up in the last sort of in our movement part, right? So that's nothing's new there. Our move, we input data get access raw, so we click the cursors, we move right or left. And then our is grounded we set up before, our move player, and so on. So the only thing that you're really changing here is when are we changing the animations, right? So our move player is nothing changes there, right? So this is all the same. So where you are changing is at the bottom here. So where we have private void jump, right? So in our private void jump, all right, sorry about that. So in our private void jump, what you want to do is, so if you're grounded is true, so that means if you're touching the ground, then you can hit space and you go into a jump mode. So from that jump mode now, we want to be able to access these variables, right? So those set bool variables to identify what's happening. So the easiest way to do this, I think, is, so if grounded is now false, so if grounded is true, you can hit space and so on. And then if grounded is false, right, which is what we added in here. So if grounded is false, what's going to happen? So that means that you've jumped off the ground or you've ran off a ledge, right? So if we jumped, so that means our rb.velocity.y is greater than 0. So that means we're increasing in y direction. So we want to set the anim.setBool is jumping as true, which that means now we're going to be able to jump. And then anim.setBool is falling, we need to set to false. So depending on kind of which modes we're in. And however, if you do run off the ledge, or vice versa, if you've jumped and then you reach the apex of the jump and now you're falling back down in terms of the parabola, right? So in a parabola, you kind of jump and then you come back down to the ground. So once you hit the top there, and then you're going to come back down to the ground. So your rb.velocity.y is now less than 0, so you're decreasing and heading towards the ground. So you want to set anim.setBool is falling is true, right? So now we go into the falling animation and we want the jumping animation to be false. And then, so if is grounded is false, else we want to make sure that both of these are set to false, right? So this is just going to return back to, so this means that, so if is grounded as false, then we go into these jumping falling animations, else, which means that we are grounded, then we're going to go back into, so it's going to set these both to false, which will return us back to the running animation or the idle. And that's it for that. So that's how you set up those jump fall animations. So hopefully this works. Again, sorry for that. I just had the video deleted, and I just thought it'd be easier just to go through the script with you. So that's it for this. So take care, and I'll see you in the next video. In the next video, we're going to be looking at collecting some items, as well as looking at adding a game view to our system where you can see the number of lives, the health system, and so on. So take care. See you in the next one.